Mr. Kotze, please, if you can start your presentation.
Thank you, Prof. All protocols are observed. Everyone, thank you very much for attending. I really appreciate that. My thesis sprouted from my role as a CIO across many organizations, either as an operational person being employed by the organization, or being a consultant that engages on specific problem-solving areas that needed attention. It is called Evaluating the Systemic Technology Risk in Financial Systems, given the increased application of the concept anything as a service. In the world of digitalization, anything that can be made virtual can be digitalized and can be offered as a service, which then started me in terms of challenging, so what is a systemic risk that we are unwittingly or knowingly introducing into the broader financial system? The research problem revolved around the limit availability of models that could provide the insight that is needed to assess, quantify, monitor, and oversee the inherent systemic technology risk in the financial system, stemming from the increased use of anything as a service, which is threatening the central banks and financial system regulators to not being able to meet their responsibilities with regard to overseeing safe, stable, and performing financial systems, which is one of the key objectives and reasons why they exist. I limited the study to the financial regulators and the oversight organizations that runs out of Europe and also the UK and also a bit out of the US. In which there were a number of models available to evaluate systemic risk, but not specifically technology systemic risk. So the primary research objective was to determine what dimensions, factors, and interrelationships should be correlated to determine the level of systemic technology risk in the financial system, stemming from the increased use of anything as a service, and that then leading into the crafting of a model by which these dimensions, factors, and interrelationships should be correlated. If we just look at the broader research context, we have got the financial system as an area of research. We have got various risk elements that are interplaying onto that financial system. And then all of these entities within the financial systems, being it from the regulatory side of things to organizations such as liquidators, estate agents, who are all part of the financial system, each of those are either explicitly or implicitly underpinned by an enterprise architecture. So these three domains then actually form a complex interrelationship, which have been the target of modeling over a long time. These models stem from various areas, regulatory models to ensure that there is some stability within the system, especially after the 2008 financial crash. Increased focus on that, Basel for the banking side of things, solvency for the insurance side of things, and then also the IMF providing a risk universe by which organizations can assess the inherent risk to their organizations. And there are a number of other regulatory models. And the types of models that are available are macroprudential models to ensure that the macroeconomic environment is modeled and understood in a large part with regard to econometric analysis by which the actual value of systemic risk is being determined. Then to apply some stress testing models onto those models to ensure that the financial system is strong enough, but also having some early warning signals. If, for example, a specific bank fails, then that brings a specific warning into the financial system, as what happened with the Silicon Valley Bank about 2 or 3 years ago, when the second bank fell in that same space in California, the Republican First Bank, that created a flurry of regulatory activities and the mustering of larger banks to take on the systemic risk and prevent it from contagion into the broader financial system in the US space, which then would have also spilled over into the global financial system, because all these things are interrelated. And obviously then there being various models to model the contagion, the extent to which contagion can happen, and then specifically because so substantial in terms of sensitivity of interlinking credit loans and facilities across different financial banking institutions globally and nationally, credit cycle is definitely one of the areas where modeling is happening. As mentioned, a number of models there, like default in the credit space, contagion if one goes, solvency if insurance organizations are no longer being able to meet their responsibilities to policyholders, and then also on the market side of things, if financial markets start to respond. If you think about the whole advent of Trump coming to power, markets were extremely jittery, lots of modeling to see what's going to happen so that trading organizations could actually position themselves with regard to those anticipated events. And then the World Economic Forum and Deloitte developed a technology-driven systemic risk model. They've got an actual program by which they are looking at technology-driven risks within the financial system and trying to determine where the risks are emanating from and what can be done to mitigate them. As you can see, a complex problem space with lots of aspects to consider. During my research, it became quite evident that there is substantial regulatory lag within the broader financial system space. If you think about some things like customer privacy, in the 1960s, first mention of that in the broader industry, the OECD, the closest one to a regulatory authority, although they are not a regulatory authority, that started recognizing this as a risk in 1980, 20 years gap. And you can see there across the entire graphic substantial gaps. The most surprising one is if you look there in the center, 58 years as of artificial intelligence being coined at Dartmouth College as a phenomena, and then only being recognized within the Bank for International Settlements context roundabouts 2013, when Jill Marcus from South Africa actually referenced this when she was still one of the directors and regulator participants from the Reserve Bank. So substantial lag between regulators being able to position the responses to specific phenomena that occur within the systemic, in the broader financial system, and the risk that stems then from the systemic interdependencies and relationships between these different entities that participate within the financial system. The other surprising one is the short lag between this whole notion of big tech as a phenomena where the likes of Google, Facebook, etc., started to participate within the financial system. You think about Apple Pay, for example, and how that has taken the world by storm. When it really got down to the grits of threatening the financial system and the financial institutions, quick response, 3 years, and there was the earliest recognition and response to big tech and what regulators recommended the mitigation actions would be. Out of my research, it became quite clear that systemic technology risk, due to the increased use of anything as a service, STRX, is a relevant phenomenon that needed to be recognized and need to be positioned within the broader financial system with regard to mitigation that would be required to actually respond to that. There are some reference models, but they do not enable the identification and the mitigation of STRX. And primarily because there's this bias towards what is known. And the what is known is that anything as a service is in fact largely put into the technology space as a sourcing event, as opposed to considering the broadness and the relevance it has in the broader sense of systemic risk. Therefore, the conclusion was that a holistic and flexible model will enable the framing, the structuring, the analysis, and the assessment of STRX. An initial kind of quantification, very difficult to get the global value of the financial marketplace. One would think that is readily available, but because countries such as China and Russia do not necessarily publish their financial systems information, one can only work on at least 1.3 quadrillion is at risk globally. In terms of the model, various dynamics that enabled us or enabled me to identify the different dimensions that need to be considered, did a detailed analysis of all the public referenceable information available from the various regulators. There's about 11 of them, that then served as a context within which I did an analysis, put it through a word cloud generator to get themes, and then identified, obviously, enterprise architecture as the point of departure, technology phenomena that will work in on that enterprise architecture, and will then lead to clouds and digital services that will be able to be presented as capabilities into the financial institutions. And of course, the regulators and the oversight organizations concerned about the different business models that are starting to appear within the financial system. And there you can see there are traditional business models such as banking, but it leads up into the decentralized financial industry in which new generation financial fintechs are starting to make their mark. So peer-to-peer lending with no bank involved, for example. And that there's a complex ecosystem that interconnects all these elements. It exceeds the financial system itself. One of the examples is what happened within the context of COVID-19, where trading organizations had boats on sea, ports got clogged up, and the transactions and the contracts that had to be fulfilled had to be repositioned in terms of that entire trading market for commodities, especially for grain commodities that had perishable dates to that. That then led to the identification of various risks that are identifiable within the broader system side of things, the financial system side of things. And on those dimensions, I've identified the different risk areas, which then was correlated through causal loop analysis in the systems thinking dimension to identify interdependencies. I also recognize that this model is fairly complex to remember, and then used Fleming's right-hand rule. For those that are into the engineering side of things, would recognize Fleming's right-hand rule with regard to how electricity would flow. I adapted that and provided simplistic reference on that model. So, for example, the pulse on which anything hangs is a financial system. Architecture, enterprise architecture, the technology phenomena, cloud digital services, business models that are emerging, all of this interconnected through the palm, regulatory oversight, the small finger trying to keep it all together, but there is this shadow of STRX that emerged and is largely hidden at this point in time.
Hendrik, you've got 1.5 minutes.
Thanks, Prof. Nearly done. I then look at a Pearson correlation to determine whether these risk factors have got any correlation. I put them into a Likert scale, assigned weighting, and then for the South African market specifically, I did an analysis, and in the South African market, which is more or less 10 trillion US dollars big, there's about 4 to 7 trillion at risk, at least at this point in time. Further, through the analysis, I used a new phenomena such as Finternet. So some of you may not know about that. The equivalent of the internet in the financial services space, and proved that this model can actually be used for multiple phenomena to assess the risks, or to identify the risk, and then to measure and assess the risk. Therefore, enabling an understanding of STRN, so multiple phenomena over a period of time. The value created extended the current knowledge and representation of the financial system, creation of new knowledge, enabling a broader set of financial system stakeholders to extend and improve their practices. There was a practical application of the model within the thesis, and then as a control, the FinTernet was applied to ensure that the model is robust and can be reused across different phenomena. Thank you, Prof.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kotze. Just for the purpose of continuation, I think it would be appropriate to, in actual fact, deviate slightly and to keep the momentum, in actual fact, ask you your question. I've got one question for you. It reads as follows. As a professional CIO, having been exposed to a number of large corporate industries, banking, mining, stock exchange, etc., all dealing with large-scale technology deployment, how, in your opinion, would your research experience be applied in executing your role as a CIO, where the role literally dictates the potential digital future and success of such an organization? If you could answer that question, you have got maximum 6 to 8 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you, Prof. Appreciate the question. So for me as a CIO, but not only as a CIO, also as a consultant in the industry, this model has got substantial relevance. Much has been written about the changing role of the CIO in the recent past. But I think this extends this to a different level. Again, a step up in terms of the role of the CIO in becoming a business transformer. Now, we have spoken about the CIO and the CIO's relevance around the corporate table to ensure enablement of the business through the application of technology. Digitalization has become important as a context within which this enablement took place. However, I'm more convinced than ever that this is now becoming a business transformer where the CIO will use this specific model to understand all the dynamics within their own financial system industry, and then look at how transformation can be applied to an organization using the enterprise architecture as a reference, and how capabilities represented in that enterprise architecture can be sourced and leveraged as a service. And that relates to business capabilities in the credit space, for example. How can one use a service to evaluate the risk within a credit portfolio? There are various of these credit service providers starting to offer that as a service. As out of the JSE, I already know that we have used in a kind of an outsourcing model, but moving towards anything as a service where we directly integrate into their systems the evaluation of our clearing portfolio and the risk inherent in the clearing portfolio. This enables us to look at increased governance, and governance not as a constrainer, but as an enabler, where governance provides the guardrails within which anything as a service can be sourced across that entire enterprise architecture, from basic infrastructure as a service at the lowest level, right up to into the capability model, as I've just outlined in terms of this example for the JSE. And then it's quite clear for me that we as CIOs should not only know about our own industries, but we need to look at this entire industry ecosystem. As I mentioned earlier, there was in the COVID space, ships lying outside of the shore. That's our entire logistics ecosystem that had to be correlated and reflected within the market positions of trading companies. So one has to look beyond your own industry into the adjacent and interdependent industries and their ecosystems. And obviously you need to then apply a risk-based approach. Once you've analyzed what the implication is on the enterprise architecture, you need to apply that risk model and identify which risks are pertinent to this organization. And also what contribution it may have towards systemic risk if it weakens the capability of an organization, because anything as a service could also result in the primary capabilities, like, for example, Mr. Trump has now tried to bring back primary capabilities back into the US. So organizations through anything as a service will no longer need those primary services or understanding and the knowledge and the skills to run those services, but by mere factor of that, then they will weaken the organization in terms of the knowledge it has and the capability it has. And that is really one of the key risk areas that we need to look at to make sure that through governance, appropriate skills and resources are retained within organizations so that they can maintain the primary understanding and insight in terms of what these services bring and change and risk they apply within organizations. So in short, I think for me, it enables me to understand the broader risk dimensions within organizations as they migrate into this anything as a service, and allowing us to appropriately format or formulate the governance that should help protect the organization as well as the financial system. Thank you, Prof.
Thank you very much, Hendrik. Could I please ask you just to remove your presentation? Okay. In the interest of time, we will move now to the next candidate, Andreas Rupp. I wrote Mr. Rupp a mail now the other day saying that coming to the end of his tenure is coming a very pleasant experience, which not every professor can say. And I would like to give him the opportunity now to do his presentation, reminding you again of the 15-minute limit. Please, Mr. Rupp, if you can continue. While we're waiting for him to dial out, I think let us go, give him the chance to log in. If we can ask Mr. Polishchuk to do his presentation in the meantime. Are you still logged in?
Yeah. Do you see my screen?
Yes, I can.
Yes.
Please carry on.
Okay, hello everyone. I'm Dmytro Polishchuk. I'm Deputy Chairman of the Board in First Ukrainian International Bank. My research thesis reads as a strategic approach to improve global retail banking customer experience levels through the utilization of digital and organizational transformation underpinned by dynamic leadership. The research within the ambit of this thesis is as follows. There is profound degradation evident in the satisfaction levels of global retail banking customers, which invariably points to curtailed utilization of digital and organizational transformation dynamics, further exacerbated by poor dynamic underpinning leadership. The primary objective of the research reads the following: to determine if a result-oriented, customized strategic approach applied to digital and organizational transformation dynamics, furthermore underpinned by specific dynamic leadership criteria, can exponentially improve the satisfaction levels of global retail banking customers. The general research structure consists of three big parts, three big puzzles, which collected together presents the holistic perspective of the dependencies of the global customer experience evolution in retail banking. The first part of my research is everything about client and its customer experience with retail banking, because client whose experience is changes under the influence of global digitalization of everyday life. And in this part of my research, I studied a lot of modern and actual trends, what impact to the customer experience development with retail banking and their evolution on daily life. I studied a lot of materials and about different models of mobile banking, cybersecurity, personalization offers, the new roles of physical infrastructure and branches in the service model, in the digital banking, everything about customer centricity, everything, all these aspects which change currently the customer experience and their demands from the banks, especially in retail banking. The second part of my research is everything about the bank, which in serious competition to retain the client, which is at risk to being lost to the competition due to digital and organizational transformation. And in this particular piece of my research, I studied and investigated a lot of aspects which help the banks go into the digital and organizational transformation, and especially everything concerning digital maturity assessment, different kinds and forms of digital transformation strategy could be applied by the bank moving to the digital from classical model, and what kind of digital strategy could be more effective concerning retail banking particularly. And I studied and tested a lot of practical frameworks, guidelines, and instructions could be used to practical implementation of the different kinds of digital transformation and organizational transformation for the banks. And the very big piece and efforts was placed to study what the roles of the people will change going through this transformation, and what additional skills and expectations needs to be developed inside of the organization to support the transformation, and what potential cultural challenges will banks meet during this way to efficient digital transformation, and how the internal leadership need to be support these changes and during this transformation period. And the third part of my research is everything about technologies, global technologies like AI, open banking, and others, and access to them which have a joint bilateral influence on development of the banks and other institutions, because the usage and efficient implementation of these different kind of technologies in retail banking can dramatically improve the customer satisfaction level and their customer experience with retail banking. And customers uses this technology also develop their expectation from the bank, and this creates the bilateral influence to the both sides. And so these three separate big puzzles collected together demonstrate the holistic perspective of the dependency of the global customer experience evolution in retail banking. Some outcomes and summaries about customer experience evolution made in my research: that customer centricity becomes the key business philosophy for the bank when the customer is the center of the decision-making process concerning products, services, and other value creation to meet the customer experience. The mobile banking has become the first choice for clients versus the physical branch visit, however, will not guarantee a stable competitive advantage anymore. Banks still use branches and will use branches to retain the human touch, to create empathy and emotional connection. However, branches adopt an advisory role and move operational activity and transactional activity to mobile banking and self-service. Banks try to create the lifestyle banking and develop them inside. Their bank aim to integrate into the customer daily activity and become the seamless part of their life. The personalized behavioral banking becomes the new standard to offer as a financial solution to the client in the right time. And the key summary and key conclusions of the customer experience study, how they evolve. The customer experience excellence become currently the key competitive advantage to guarantee the sustainability for retail bank in the future. Bank could not compete on the market for the client based on product, pricing, service, etc. The customer experience becomes the key advantage on the market globally. Some outcomes about global technology impacts how the impact to the customer experience development and how the bank meets those expectations. That open banking currently avails bank access to external customer data, but artificial intelligence helps to analyze this data and generate something new and valuable for the client. The effective use of technology creates the opportunity and freedom to develop a unique and personalized customer experience for most classical banking products. And the growing competition in retail banking enhance general globalization and cross-country business expansion push the banks to digital transformation and new technologies utilization. AI implementation in retail banking service model helps banks to create their business efficiency and significantly improve the customer satisfaction in all contact points with the client. I studied in my research that AI could be implemented in anywhere in the any banking service and products, but AI provides the benefits to enhance the quality of consolidation and speed up the time and to collect and prepare the difficult materials and explain to the customers. And banks need to create the clear focus in their digital strategy where to apply the AI to be successful in this implementation, because banks can spend a lot of efforts and resources to implement some changes in some services, but it will not bring the satisfaction and improve the satisfaction level of their customers. And ultimately, it is the customer and their experience with the bank that determine the quality of new technologies usage and its future. It also serves as a key measurement of the extent a bank is digital matured and ready to use the technology for its business strategy development. The mitigation of research problem, briefly. Existing level, where is the problem is? The existing level of successful digital transformation in retail banking is lower than 33% in the world. Let's imagine 33% in the world. Up to 87% of companies fail their initial objectives in digital transformation. The gap in digital organizational transformation generates negative impact on customer satisfaction levels under the pressure of the new global trends in retail banking. A successful digital transformation is now a strategic imperative, forming the foundation for bank survival and competitiveness in the race to improve customer satisfaction levels. So the mitigation research problem currently is vested in model approach and consists of 4 different pieces, going step by step for efficient digital transformation of the bank to meet this evolved customer experience. First of all, this digital maturity assessment. It's very important to determine the existing level of readiness to face the actual digital challenges and opportunities before the start of digital transformation strategy. The second was to choose the right digital transformation strategy. This research assesses and proposes the most applicable retail banking strategies depending on the existing level of digital maturity and actual strategic vision of the bank. The third one is to choose the right digital transformation framework for implementation a digital strategy. And here I propose the 10-step practical guideline with questions to be addressed to and answered to by management of the bank. And the fourth, maybe one of the most important, it's everything about leadership support. To don't lose the focus on cultural challenges from the start, and all changes to be supported at all management levels. Value created as a result of the research. I split all values to 2 separate blocks and 2 separate directions. Academic perspective and practical perspective. From academic perspective, which I already mentioned in one of the slides, the research result create a holistic perspective of 3 very critical issues for the retail banking development. It assesses many aspects of the customer experience evolution due to rapid development of technologies, the first. It covers digital and organizational transformation issues of retail bank to answer to the customer experience evolution. It demonstrates how global technologies impact both the customer experience evolution and digital transformation of retail bank dynamics. From practical perspective, because I am practical manager of the bank, the research includes a plethora of real-world projections and recommendations concerning customer expectations from the future of banks, gleaned from practical experience. The research recommends many practical tools, guidelines, benchmarks, strategies, recommendations concerning effective digital and organizational transformation of the bank. It demonstrates a practical perspective on AI and open banking implementation areas in retail banking for customer experience development. And the research highlights key recommendations and expectations from leaders for the efficient management of all the changes in different stages and explain what needs to be changed in corporate values and culture to enhance the research of the transformation of the bank. That's all. I would like to thank you for your attention for my presentation.
Let's just get this done. Thank you very much. Again, following the same process, Mr. Polishchuk, I've got a question for you specifically. Forming part of the top tier of management at executive level for a retail bank in Ukraine, were you able to apply the findings from your research into the organization using your practical formulated guidelines? And what measurable, tangible benefit result or culminated therefrom? If you could answer that, please, for me.
Thank you for your question, Professor. A little retrospective. When I joined the bank in 2023, it had just completed the first level of organizational transformation based on very famous agile methodology, global methodology in the world, in order to compete with digital leaders in Ukrainian retail banking. But there was no success. And going to my research, I analyzed the why, what the reason and how I could mitigate it. And when I go into my research, I analyze the reasons, I identify that there was done a lot of misses and mistakes, especially was missed the clear link between a new organizational model and the general strategic vision and key digital transformation objectives of the bank. And the bank organized a lot of teams to catch up the digital solutions, but they produced a lot of changes without clear link with general business goals. The result was not so good. And the teams and new organizational model was organized based on old philosophy about the products, and all teams worked to mastering their products and develop a lot of features and changes to make their product the best. But it's not always their results and products meet the evolved customer expectations and customer experience because it's changed. And they thought the really big issue, which I identified that bank invested a lot of efforts to new organizational model to offer the people new roles, but people was not ready to take the decision, take responsibility. The internal culture need to be evolved and changed, and there was no support on different level of management going through this transformation. So in my practical recommendation, in my research was proposed a lot of guidelines, questionnaires, and instructions how to mitigate these issues. And during last year, we went through the second wave of organizational transformation inside, and rebuilt everything around customers, invested a lot to trainings, to cultural changes, a lot of other things. And as a result, measurable results, we improved dramatically. Based on this recommendation was placed in my research, we improved dramatically the digital acquisition model of the bank, and currently we reach almost 70% share of customers recruited through the digital channel, and we doubled almost the credit portfolio, mostly because digital lending product and services was implemented, and more than 90% of the service and operations currently customer could make outside of the branches, and they are available in mobile or in contact center. And what is more important in current situation in Ukraine, that where we have 8 million migrants outside of the country because of war, all this transformation and digital strategy development and digital solutions implemented by the bank allows us to support our Ukrainians outside of the country, because they still have the financial and banking needs inside of Ukraine, but they are far from us. And Ukrainian banks, of course, they have not any physical infrastructure outside of Ukraine, and only digital solution helps to satisfy the customer experience outside of Ukraine. So I see that my recommendations and the practical guidelines placed in my research have very practical application, and could be used not only by our bank, other banks, but it could be used by even not by financial organization, because it's very similar situation how to organize the internal organizational structure and to meet the digital challenges and general business goals of organization, if you will link this together, and this is very important. So I think I answered your question.
Thank you very much for that. Mr. Polishchuk, for continuation, I started you without introducing you, simply not to have a break after Mr. Rupp deserted us, but he will be back. It was an interesting journey with you these past year or nearly 2 years. The one thing that improved exponentially in your life was your English language acumen, because when we started, it was very difficult to understand you and for you to understand me. But I'm glad to say that at the end, we managed to reach some type of equilibrium. I also aged significantly since reading Mr. Polishchuk's document, but I survived. But it was a great journey with you, and thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mr. Rupp, are you back with us?
Yes, I'm back. I'm sure your black book was so big that my PC has made a blue screen, but now I hope it's fall down.
You see, Mr. Rupp, technology just is something that lets you down. We all know that, but let's try it. I've already done your introduction. And again, I want to re-emphasize, it was one of the most pleasant experiences that I've had, simply because it was in an area where I also qualify myself in to know a little bit about that world. And it was a very, very satisfying experience to see this document come to fruition at the end. I would like to give you the opportunity now to do your presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Prof. Good evening and welcome to presentation of my PhD thesis. My name Andreas Rupp and I'm a senior expert for business intelligence and data science at the drugstore chain Müller, headquartered in Nyon. The research title of my thesis is the application of AI mechanism to facilitate operational data management for enhanced functionality and usability. Let's start with the research problem. Operational data management in many organizations is characterized by a fragmented data landscape. Refers to a situation in which data within an organization is decentralized, inconsistent, and spread across many different systems or departments. The characteristics for fragmented data landscapes are data silos. Data is stored in separate systems like Excel files, different databases, ERP, CRM system, different formats, and more that do not communicate with each other or do not so only with difficulty. Redundancy, the same information exists multiple times in slightly different versions. Inconsistencies, different data formats or structured lead to contradictions or quality problems. No central data management, there's no uniform governance or central control of data storage. Difficult access, user must manual search or aggregate different systems to get a complete picture. Manual data consolidation, reference to the time-consuming manual process of merging, comparing, and standardizing data from multiple sources to obtain a consistent and complete view of the data. Features of manual data consolidations, merging data is explored from different tools in different formats and manual merged into tables. High effort and error prone, every manual step increases the risk of typos, incorrect formulas, or unauthorized duplicates. Not scalable, the effort increases with the numbers of sources, formats, and data volumes. No real-time data results are often outdated because they may already be obsolete at the time of creation. Inconsistent data quality means that data within a system or across multiple systems is inconsistent, incomplete, contradictory, or incorrect. This has a negative impact of the reliability and usability of the data. Typical signs of inconsistent data quality are different formats. For example, a date is written differently. Contradictory information, for example, a customer has the address 123 Main Street in system A and Main Street 10 in system B. Also, duplicates the same entry customer article exists multiple times. Missing values, important fields or information are missing or empty. Incorrect entries, for example, 1000 in the field of the postal code of a location that should actually be 89331. Missing relationships, data sources cannot be linked to each other. Missing or incomplete security measures, insufficient defined authorizations, concepts, inadequate labeling and classification of personal data, and confidential business information. These limitations hinder the usability and functionality of data-driven decision making, reduce agility and transparency in operational processes. This brings us to our primary research objective: develop and evaluate an AI-based solution that enhances operational data management by increasing data consistency and accessibility. Means especially improving the reliability, also data is accurate, trustworthy, and up-to-date. Uniformity, data allows consistent formats and standards across all sources, and availability authorizes user and systems can access the data when needed. These are two key objectives in data management, especially when interacting AI-supported systems. Automating data integration and quality assurance means that the process of merging and checking data are no longer carried out manually, but automatically, often with the help of scripts, workflows, or AI-supported tools. Supporting user-centric and process-oriented data usage means providing and designing data in such a way that is tailored to the needs of users and the process within the company, and not the other way around. These objectives aim to enable a scalable, intelligent data foundation that improves operational efficiency and decision marketing across the organization. So the use of Gen AI and AI to implement the challenged room. Programmable use of large language models, Gen AI, determine security, check whether content is security relevant, recognize, describe, and determine the relevance of content and personal data. For example, is there personal data and it is relevant, such as contact person, explaining the decision, why did the LMM make this decision, for example, for debugging, assigning and filtering data, for example, filtering query results by permissions, validating Gen AI and AI results, making automatical adjustment if necessary, and more. Also the use of AI methods, data mining, reading, transforming, and describing file contents, images, videos, messages, PDFs, and many more. For example, what is the beside in an image, the description or the description about the picture, what content text is in the image, and it is relevant for the information. Conversion and adaptation for various data formats, for loading processes, for example, transforming an Excel pivot table into a relational model, and more. Use of machine learning pipelines to automate process, time or event-driven processing all over the time. Well, so the research content and outcome development framework provides a modular and intelligent architecture to seamlessly embed AI into operational data environments. A modular system architecture combining AI methods with operational data systems describes a flexible component-based software system in which artificial intelligence is specially integrated into existing operational data infrastructures. Integration with existing BI and data warehousing platforms means that the developed system or framework can be seamlessly connected to existing business intelligence solution and data warehouse infrastructures without replacing or disrupting them. Scalable, reusable components to ensure long-term applicability describes a central architectural approach in modern IT and AI systems. The aim is to design building blocks, the components, in such a way that they can be easily expanded as scalable and reused in different contexts, reusable, and are therefore permanently usable. This design ensures long-term adaptability, compatibility, and scalability within existing data infrastructures. The developed prototype was implemented in a controlled enterprise environment to evaluate its practical applicability and performance. Implementation and evaluation. Prototype deployed in a controlled enterprise setting. The system was tested in a safe real-world-like environment within the company. Operational data from multiple systems. Data was integrated from various business systems such as ERP, CRM, and SCM. Evaluation focused on process efficiencies, data quality, and usability. The main goals were to measure improvements in workflows, data reliability, and user experience. Observed improvements included significant reduce in manual data preparing efforts. Less time was needed for collecting, cleaning, and merging data manually. Noticeable increase in data accuracy and consistency. The data become more reliable due to automated checks and standardizations. Faster and above all, easier access to information. Users should find and use relevant data more quickly and intuitively. The evaluation demonstrated clear potential for efficiency gains, improved data quality, and enhanced usability in operational context. So, the implementation of the AI-based framework led to several positive effects on user and data handling across the organization. Better user satisfaction thanks to simpler provisioning of information in one place. Users no longer have to search to different systems. All relevant data is available centrally. improve data literacy among user, employers better understand how data is structured and how it can be used. Access to data relating to a user that was previously unavailable. Previous unconnected or hidden information is now accessible and usable. Clearer data semantics and accessibility AI mechanism. Data is described in an understandable way and AI functions are easier to use. This outcomes reflects a significant step toward a more intelligent, user-friendly, and transparent data environment. Well, the value paradigm we have created a new value paradigm for operation data management, automation, reduce of respective tasks via AI. AI-based components take over routine and respective tasks such as data classification, validation, or transformation, reducing manual workloading, saving time, and minimizing human errors. Integration, unified view of data across silos. The system integrates data from multiple isolated sources, for example, ERP, CRM documents, to create a consistent, centralized view, enabling holistic analysis and improved decision making. The usability, more intuitive and effective use of operational data. Information is made accessible and understandable through user-centric interfaces and contextual AI support, empowering users to work with data more confidently and independently. Findings, use and application of cloud AI and Gen AI in a business context. The project demonstrates how enterprise-ready Gen AI and enterprise-ready AI and Gen AI technology can be successfully implemented in real-world business environments to enhance data management and driven information. Scalability, AI mechanism adapted to the diverse organizational context. The modular design allows AI components to be scaled and reused across departments and processes, supporting long-term flexibility and growth as data and business needs allowed. Empowering data-driven culture with AI augmented decision support. So, thank you very much for your time and interest.
Thank you, Mr. Rupp. I just want to do this. I've got one question for you, and that is as follows. Very short question, in fact. Can you please elaborate on how the results of your PhD research were implemented within Mueller and which measurable benefits flowed to not only the company, but also to yourself?
Okay, I do a methodical approach for a current requirement from the controlling department with various users look for information in various controlling systems with information about reports, KPIs, and applications. And they have not to all systems the possibility to access the information. And so the result of the thesis applied in a proof of concept. And we started with a holistic perspective. And then we used our applied framework with the ETL, data pre-processing and cleansing, and the flowchart LLM chatbot with AI solutions. In the holistic perspective, we have the relevant challenge and identities between the data, also the data silos, the different formats, and so on. And we have no clear permission structure, also the governance in, for example, in Confluence. Normally, you have a high manual effort for each page to bring this in a format or to bring permissions inside this, then you can use. This was the classical way, but we have the solution via our framework and modular AI Gen AI support, for example, We can automatical content analysis and classification for such documents like general, medium security, and top secret. LMM must require to justify the decision. We have a controlled run validation of correctness. Also, we have only medium and as a general and medium security adapt and top secret excluded from the start. And the result was an LLM chatbot, a single access point for the users. They have direct access to the relevance infos and links to the reports, applications, and KPIs. And before they have it was hardly possible to become this information only manual via third parties. The measurable benefits of it. If you go at the classic way for qualitative approaches, it was difficult a little bit before it's maybe it's possible with clustering the user groups and the way we go to the result now. So we do qualitative approaches with interviews, surveys, observation, and user feedback directly in the chatbot. Also, we have the technical benefits, the frameworks and the work were reusable, scalability, or modulary. We have also a long-time benefits for strategy and data culture for the digital transformation. And we have also wide future information about the AI applications. Well, for myself, I have to change to work with AI, Gen AI in a real business context, not only in a sandbox, and really in a business context. It was I learned a lot of about the techniques. I'm now really deep inside AI and the data architecture with Gen AI and so on. But I have also have learned a lot, also critical reflection for large language models and Gen AI. Sometimes you have maybe, for example, an identical prompt. It's only with it sounds a little other, and then you will become another result from the large language model. And it's also an experience for the different versions and models when they have updated their models. We have started with Gemini 1.5 and now with Gemini 2.5. We have a lot of prompt templates. We must change them, but they do not more work against. Yes, it was a nice journey through AI and Gen AI, but it's I think it's a good possibility to use it in a business context. That's all.
Thank you very much, Mr. Rupp. Well, they say that when you start off, everything cannot be perfect, although we tried to be perfect. Mr. Rupp didn't start perfect, but I also had an issue this evening. I hope nobody noticed, but unfortunately I had an emergency dentist visit just before this meeting, and resulting in my tongue not getting around all the words that I've got to say. But please excuse that. I hope nobody noticed, but for all intents and purposes, Mr. Rupp, it's not only you that have problems, so do I. We come now to our last candidate, Dr. LeRoux. Known her a long, long time. She did her first PhD under me and also the second PhD. The second PhD was far more difficult than the first PhD. But the work was very demanding, and with her current workload, virtually impossible to keep all the wheels rolling at once, hence the rather elongated study time, which deviated from the norm. But ultimately, we got the document out and approved. I would like to give her the opportunity now to present her research. So please go ahead.
Thank you, Prof. I trust that you can see my screen. Can you see, Prof?
Yes, we can.
Perfect. So Professor Watkins, Dr. Kelling, and attendees, thank you very much for this opportunity tonight. As Prof. Watkins just indicated, I'm Suzaan LeRoux, and I'm currently the acting section head for postgraduate studies at the Cape Peninsula University of Technology in Cape Town, South Africa. And since I've been in higher education my whole life, just over 25 years, I thought it well to do my research on andragogical education. So my research title reads, A Critical Evaluation into the Effects of Cohesive Exogenous Impositions on Andragogical Education. So in layman's terms, it actually implies that I looked at the effects of various external forces or barriers and what it has on adult education. Moving on, just to give you a quick background with regards to my research, these external forces or barriers that I've looked at comprised 6 impositions. It was political conditions that I've looked at, economic conditions, cultural, social, technological, and generational differences. So it was quite a lot to work on. And then I looked at 4 educational settings, higher education, vocational training, as well as corporate and community-based training. Now, since I am in a higher education environment, I focus primarily on public and private higher education institutions, and then also non-profit training centers where I am involved. So it was important to look at these impositions or external forces because they consistently influence the capability of adult learners to effectively engage in any andragogical pursuits. So moving on to the research problem, my research problem was actually twofold. First, I identified a gap that exists in properly understanding the effects of these external impositions on andragogical education. And then secondly, I also thought of looking at the viability of an all-inclusive, grand, one-size-fits-all universal solution in addressing these impositions. So my primary objective of this research was then to determine the effect of all these impositions on andragogical education, specifically from a developing country context, since I'm from South Africa, and then also to look at the viability of this so-called one-size-fits-all universal solution in an attempt to mitigate the research problem. So in order to do that, I had to obviously collect information. And the ways that I've chosen was, as you can see on the screen, was first the thematic analysis, which was obviously literature that I've gathered. And at the end of the day, I systematically summarized and analyzed 276 scholarly sources, which range from 2090 to 2024. So it would stretch over a 6-year period. And I used SPSS and Atlas TI to identify any recurring themes in the literature, relationships, patterns, etc. Then I also incorporated ethnographic observation, which allowed me to get real world classroom insights. And since I've indicated I'm 25 years plus in education, I've used that 25 years of experience and observation to assist with the process. And that's the last one, the experience and perspectives that was also brought into consideration. So if we look at what I have found in, this is now really in broad terms, is my first sub-question that I looked at was to look at the extent of these impositions on andragogical education. And as you can see from the figure in front of you, the first three, that's now social, technological, and cultural impositions, emerge the most frequently throughout the literature. And then if we look at the first one, social, you can see it's the most frequently reported amongst all the 6 impositions that I've looked at. And that comprise things such as societal norms, institutional expectations, and peer pressures. Then if we look at the technological impositions, I've found that it is mostly related to enforced digital tool adoption or then AI-driven systems, and it was most significant in a developed context. Moving on to the cultural one, that was now more things like the identity, the language, the local values. It was found that it complicates curricular inclusivity as well as learner engagement. And then the last 3 at the bottom, you can see economic and political impositions. They had higher proportions in developing countries. And those comprise things such as limited funding, centralized policy making, and systemic fragility. And lastly, the generational impositions were more prominent in developed settings, and this then reflects the ongoing discourse that we find around digital equity and intergenerational learning. If you look at the figure on the right side of your screen, that is about looking at how availability, accessibility, and effectiveness, how that influences andragogical education. So I looked at these 3 dimensions and found that if we look at technological and social impositions, those 2 stood out that impacts all 3 of these dimensions. Effectiveness, it was the most frequently referenced in the sources that I've consulted, and then it was followed by accessibility and availability. But just to mention that availability was totally underrepresented. So what does this all point to? It points to a conceptual imbalance in the literature, and that a universal one-size-fits-all solution is simply not feasible. Then I've also found a strong geographical skew, where most of the references regarding these 3 dimensions originate from first a developed country context, and it also concentrated mostly on higher education. So this raises the question with us about the generalizability of the current scholarly insights. So this means that we need more intersectional mitigation strategies that holistically address all 3 of these dimensions. Moving to the third research question, you will see there that I've looked at how these impositions manifest differently across diverse socioeconomic and demographic backgrounds. Unfortunately, I can't make the screen a little bit larger, but what it boils down to is if we look at the top there, the gender and the age, they were the most prominent impositions, and it affects mostly women and older learners, adult learners. And then if we look at class, it also appears as an influential variable, especially where social and economic impositions intersect. Then if we look at race and ethnicity, displays the lowest representation within this matrix, and this then in turn suggests a thematic gap. Then lastly, the last 2, geographical or regional, all these external pressures that I found vary according to the institutional setting, whether it is a private institution, higher institution, work-based, etc. And then lastly, the community-based education is more affected by cultural and social impositions. So lastly, I looked at my fourth question, and that is about my extent to which an all-inclusive one-size-fits-all solution could be used. Can it be formulated? Can it be implemented? Will it be feasible? Will it be viable? And I had to find the answer to that. So at the end of the day, a singular one-size-fits-all solution is theoretically unviable, it's empirically unsupported, and it is ethically precarious. So a clear pattern emerges across all the dimensions that I've investigated, and that is that adult learning, the landscape, is simply too differentiated and it's too complex to be governed by a universal solution. So if you look at the figure in front of you, you will see there that I have highlighted various pitfalls on the right side for a universal mitigation model in andragogy. So first of all, this solution would fail to meet practical demands. It would be incapable of addressing the lived realities of learners across these various contexts and identities. It's not feasible. Why not? Because contextual irrelevance, it ignores all the local needs. Equity erosion, it means it reinforces the existing inequalities, and then there's limited scope, which means it excludes certain key impositions. So my answer is simple: a context-sensitive, modular approach rooted in adaptability, in local relevance, and thematic inclusivity is then the way to go. So this was all based on the thematic analysis. So my last piece of information gathering came from my own observations and experiences as an educator in a higher education environment, as well as in a non-profit training center. So in front of you, you see an institutional response spectrum, and it demonstrates to us that responses to these pressures that I've identified range from resistance, which you will see is typically associated with my traditional public higher education institutions, and it goes to full transformation, which we see is more common in agile, non-profit and private institutions in the middle and on the right side. So at the first glance, looking at that figure, it seems a little bit odd that the non-profit training centers, which we always see as resource constraints, are positioned on the transformation end of the spectrum, alongside the better resource private higher education institutions in the middle. However, this transformation in the spectrum does not refer to the financial power of the institution, but rather to adaptiveness, responsiveness, and innovation under constraint. So that means that while these nonprofit training centers face a lot of financial constraints, and their responsiveness, their agility, and adaptability place them towards the transformative end of the spectrum, it means that these empirical observations show that these external barriers or impositions that adult learners face are not merely constraints, but very importantly, it also serves as stimuli for change. So that led me to a context-sensitive framework, and you can see that the idea was not to come up with a model. It was to rather provide key recommendations for enhancing andragogical education across the 6 impositions that I've looked at. And this framework supports the core argument. And if you look at the middle of the figure, you will see it boils down to that there is no universal solution. And that context is very, very important. We must recognize complexity. We must reject standardization, and we must embrace adaptive responsive response pathways. So it means that there is no single universal model that can adequately accommodate these diverse impositions that I've identified. So instead, effective strategies must be recognized. We cannot use a blanket approach. We have to reject a blanket approach to standardization and support adaptive, locally grounded, responsive pathways in turn. So these recommendations that you see in front of you, it is not intended as fixed prescriptions, but rather to serve as reflective, context-informed guidelines for stakeholders, whether it be adult learners or educators or policy makers that is navigating the diverse and evolving educational environments that they find themselves in. So I conclude my presentation with the last bit, and that is the scholarly contributions. You can see that I believe that I've contributed 11 components, but I only want to focus on the 4 that I have put the red block around. And the first one here
Suzaan,
at the top.
you've got 2 minutes.
Thank you, Prof. Is an enhanced understanding. That's the idea of a PhD, that we must have an enhanced understanding of what we have researched. And I believe that my research provides nuanced insights into the external impositions in adult education, and that it will help the necessary stakeholders as identified earlier. Then theory building, I believe that the research contributes to decolonized and content-sensitive educational theories. And then on the left at the bottom, the Global South relevance, which resonates with familiar challenges in post-colonial and Global South context. And lastly, I believe for future inquiry purposes, that this research sets a platform for ongoing interdisciplinary dialogue. So if I can conclude, I would say that andragogical education is not simply just about delivering content or producing skills. It is about navigating the complexities with care and responding to constraints with creativity. Thank you.
Thank you, Suzaan, for that very polished presentation. I want, in particular, new students or students that are currently busy with their research to listen to the next question, because I think they can find this to great value. And that's the question that I've got for Dr. LeRoux is, during your proposal stage of your research, you formulated a research design and data collection strategy that you indicated that you would use during your research. However, as this research progressed, what curtailed your ability to execute on the original approved research design and data collection strategy, and how were you able to remedy the curtailments?
Thank you, Prof. Yes, 100% correct. What I initially started off with 2.5 years ago, in the beginning of 2023, you have this preset idea of what you're going to do and how you're going to do it. And the more you do research and the more you start doing things, you realize, but this is maybe not going to fly as good as I thought it's going to go. So the research outcome initially was that I wanted to do applied research, and that I wanted to use my results to address practical issues and to create a framework or solutions. And then also I started off with thinking I'm going to take a qualitative approach where I'm going to conduct interviews with various stakeholders, whether it's now educators, students, etc. And I've set up all the questions that I'm going to ask in the interview, and then I sent to the students that's perhaps still up for colloquiums in the future. I sent it to Prof, and I said to him, Prof Watkins, sure, I look at my questions and I think it's too difficult for an average student to understand, which means that they will not provide me with the answers that I'm actually looking for. Now what? So he said, don't worry, there's a solution to all of this. So in addition to that, I'll get to the solution. It was also the ethical clearance part. In South Africa, it is a nightmare to get ethical clearance, especially at higher education institutions. And I used 3 of them. So it was really difficult, 3 different types of institutions. So I would not have received the desired results. Then the other thing is the research design that I've used was initially just design thinking, and I was thinking of using the full cycle, typically consists out of 5 phases, and I would use all 5 because I want to go through the prototype stage, stage 4, and the testing phase at a lot. But that also turned out not to be viable in my situation, so I could not go the action-oriented approach. So then I had to change a bit. So then I said, okay, the research outcome is not going to be applied anymore. I am now going to go more the thematic analysis route, using also my experience as an educator in 25 years. And I'm going to go more for theoretical insight. So descriptive research, explanations, critical understanding, and then providing recommendations at the end of the day. So I took out the action part and I brought in conceptual to look at the viability of this universal solution. Then moving away from the interview, which was clearly not going to work. Sorry, there comes a screen up on my side. Sorry, Prof. So the next thing that I looked at was mixed methods. So like I've shown you in one of my slides, I thought of rather going the thematic analysis of my 276 scholarly resources, and then also my observations over the few years, and then also incorporated my experience and perspectives as an educator. And then the design thinking, I had to go a partial route, since I was not really going to develop a new model or anything like that, but rather go the recommendations route. Given the complexity of the study, I decided then to go only the first 3 phases. And then the last thing, the research purpose, I would say, like I said earlier, I went to rather conceptual instead of action-based, so that I could then test the viability of the universal solution. So, Prof, I hope that answers your question.
This indeed does, because more often than what, people battle at the initial stage of the research to select a design and then end up with something totally different. Thank you very much, Suzaan.
Thank you, Prof.
Now comes the best part of the evening. And each one of the candidates will remember that I spent time with you to explain how much you've got to put into, in actual fact, pass this PhD. I also recall telling you that if you deliver me work of 50%, dream on, I'm not going to pass you, the examination panel will not pass you. If you deliver me with 60%, you're still not going to pass. If you deliver me with 65%, I will still not pass you. So to just get a pass mark for a PhD, to get unconditional acceptance of the research. And that is an important aspect of doctoral research, because examiners always come and require changes. And it's very rare to get unconditional acceptance of the research. Furthermore, is the attainment of quality representative academic research. The third point, sustained and thorough research in the field that you are in. It also have to be quality original research, and it also must add to the existing body of knowledge. And if you get a lot of tick marks on all of those, and you have convinced the other 2 examiners that you will pass, you still end up with me being the sticky person that don't want to pass you. Prof. Kelling normally is the one that pleads with me to just pass the students. And this is why not every person passes a PhD. You may have done wonderful work, but you will not get the pass rate. Mr. Kotze, the examination committee decided to unconditionally award you PhD. Congratulations. Mr. Rupp, the examination committee decided to unconditionally pass your research. Congratulations. Mr. Polishchuk, my telephone tells me that Suzaan has just finished her presentation. Mr. Polishchuk, for making me grey and age, the examination committee decided to pass you unconditionally. Dr. LeRoux, for all the years of grey hair, for grey hair and a lot of other things, the examination committee also decided to give you a pass mark. And now that we've got pass marks, one comes to a point that say, what distinguishes a pass mark and a cum laude? Very little. But being an academic and being a professional, there must be very distinctive aspects. We all wish we can pass cum laude. It's just not possible because you've already attained a very high pass mark to just get the degree. And as a result of that, what do I look at? And what does the examination committee look at in passing something over to a student to say, I passed my PhD cum laude? And in the universities around the world, very few, in actual fact, have got that distinction to give you between a pass mark and a cum laude. It's straight a pass mark, that's it. You either get the PhD or you don't. With Kairos, it's different. We have got a demarcation. And that demarcation is decided upon basically two factors. The first one is the creation of exceptional new learning. And the second one, the creation of an extraordinary value paradigm. It is my great pleasure to announce that out of this group of students are two that would pass cum laude. The first one would be Andreas Rupp.
Wow,
And the
thank you very much.
You're welcome. And the second one, Dr. Suzaan LeRoux. Thank you very much. Over to you, Dr. Kelly.
Yeah, Thank you very much, Professor Watkins, for leading us through the presentation and announcing the great news. Also, congratulations from my side and Kairos University to our 4 candidates, Hendrik, Kotze, Andreas, Rupp, Dmytro, Polishchuk, and Dr. Suzaan, LeRoux. Congratulations for this great achievement. A few words before we conclude tonight's colloquium with regards to your graduation. We have uploaded, and you will see this in your study web, the options of how you can graduate, and I will still contact you in person in order to figure out which option you would like to have, since it is not viable for everyone to go or travel to the United States in today's visa situations. The university offers a virtual, that is through Teams, graduation. Secondly, the university offers you to send the graduation documents to your address, that you receive it without a graduation ceremony. And the additional option that we in IBR offer, since we have on a regular basis in Namibia and also in Zimbabwe graduations for our global MBA students, that we would be willing to also invite you, so that we would have a mixed MBA and PhD graduation. And we believe that the beginning of, during the first half of the next year, I would say, we're going to have one in Windhoek as well as one in Harare. Again, I'm going to contact you on an individual basis so that you have time to think about. As I said, it's uploaded in your study web, the options that are there, and you can have a look, and then we will conclude what you would, how you would like to do this. Yeah, ladies and gentlemen, let me thank those that contributed to tonight's session. It is definitely Prof. Watkins who has led us through this colloquium, but it is also the participation, which is very important, of other graduates of ours that are present here. And I start with Dr. Daniela Eberspecher-Roth, who made it to come, and we have seen Dr. Konrad Lutombi, who was here, and we also have seen Dr. Verushka van Dijk, who was here, and then obviously also all those that are working on their PhD research that have made it and come in and congratulate, and then also those that have been invited by those that presented tonight. We thank you very, very much for coming and supporting and sending congratulations, as I see they're coming in the chat windows. Let me just maybe before I finish here, there is Hastings Tibuia from Namibia. Well done, team. Congratulations. Colin Shamur Yarira, candidate, also congratulations. Then Darlene Deal, also congratulations, and thank you for the inspiration that your presentations have been. Then Kerstin Rösch from Germany, a colleague of Mr. Rupp, congratulations from my side as well. And Sydney Boyce, congratulations, a student as well. Thank you very much for sending your greetings, and you may have all the reasons for tonight to open a bottle of champagne and to celebrate. And we're looking forward to inviting you for the next colloquium. Thank you very much, and you have a very good night.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Bye-bye.
everybody.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Bye.
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 Thank you.
Bye.